Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Mind Muscle Connection podcast. Today's a solo episode, and I have a really interesting topic. At least I think it's interesting that I want to chat about, and it's how women have a higher stress response to dieting, and what does that mean, and how do we apply this? But first, before I dive into that, I just want to remind everyone of my free body recomp checklist. Again, there's 10 things here. It dives into the most important things in terms of seeing a body recomp, and also goes over two types of body recomp, why it's important to focus on your body composition, what it is, and again, some practical strategies to lead you to that. So if you're interested in that, the link to that is in the show notes there. And again, it's completely free there. So with that out of the way, let's dive into today's topic. So it's, again, women have a stress response to dieting. So what does that mean? And then what can we do about it? And then I'm going to wrap up with just talking about some differences between fat loss dieting between men and women and what we can do there with that, where it is different, where it may be the same. So in my experience working with clients, women have a greater stress response when dieting. So what this means is that the approach needs to be strategic. We need to be more strategic here, and it needs to be less about, oh, hey, just eat less. Right. Again, that's what people typically do. They know that, hey, they need to be in a calorie deficit to drop body fat. And so again, that usually is accompanied by just eating less. And again, we do need to consume less calories to be in a fat loss diet and to lose body fat. But again, where you see this issue is now people just, their only focus during this time is to just drop calories as much as possible. And this is where I think a lot of women end up struggling from a fat loss perspective, because their just hormonal profile, their physiology is just a little bit more, I can't think of the word right now for whatever reason, receptive to calorie deficit. It just impacts their bodies a little bit more. I still can't think of the word. It's frustrating to me. So again, we need to just be a little bit more strategic there with that. And so again, what does this mean? So first, we need to be careful with large deficits when it comes to fat loss dieting for women. A more modest calorie deficit is going to work better for women. Large deficits, they can trigger greater metabolic adaptation, hormonal shifts, and increased stress, which can increase hunger and cravings, and it can make fat loss tougher over time. So again, I've just seen this where, again, women's bodies adapt a little bit quicker to fat loss. Again, we have these hormonal shifts. So again, things get out of balance there. We don't have that right kind of balance of everything. And there's just this increased stress on the body that can cause the body to retain some water weight. And again, that added stress zaps recovery and just your willpower in terms of staying consistent with it. And again, just when we're fat loss dieting, we kind of have these nutrient deficits as well too. And again, that's going to impact the female body a bit more, right? When we think evolutionarily speaking, women naturally have a little bit more body fat compared to men, right? They need it. They need a little bit more body fat. And again, a lot of it has to do with reproduction, right? So again, that's a very energy intensive process for women. And, this is why when we look at women that need to get pregnant, again, like we want to be in a healthy, just overall, like we want our overall metabolism to be healthy. Just, we need to be in a healthy spot. And this is where, when you look at the menstrual cycle, a dysregulated menstrual cycle is a sign that you're not in a great spot from an overall health standpoint, and something along the chain is off. So again, we want to be really careful with these really aggressive large deficits there. Now, when I say that, as always, anytime we do a large deficit, again, large deficit being where you'll see really quick weight loss, and this is not water weight fluctuation. You start a fat loss diet, you say you lose first 3 pounds in that first week. You're not in a large deficit there. That's just water weight changes. Now, if you continue that 3 pounds, that's where you're probably in too big of a deficit, and it's going to be really hard for you to sustain that. So again, that's kind of what we mean by a large deficit. You're seeing large amounts of weight loss. Now, again, any aggressive dieting strategy needs to be, especially with some built-in refeeds, diet breaks and everything. But again, for women, I would say if you were to compare men versus women, are going to need to be less aggressive or they're going to need to spend less time on being less aggressive. Again, this is generally speaking, right? You may find some women that can be aggressive for short periods of time and they're good to go. But again, this really just comes down to the fact that, we're going to see a little bit more metabolic adaptation. We're going to see a little bit more hormonal shifts, and we're just going to see increased stress. And that's going to lead to this increased hunger and cravings. And again, that's going to make fat loss dieting tougher over time. Now, the more aggressive we go with women, the more we need to be on top of all these other things that I'm going to talk about here. Again, just in general, first kind of takeaway here is we need to be careful with large deficits. If we do decide to go a little bit more aggressive, the next 4 things, or 5, 6, I can't remember how many I have, need to be in check. All right, so number 2 is going to be just less time dieting overall. Okay, when we look at this, not only do we want to generally be less aggressive, but we also want to spend less time dieting overall. So what this means is spending more time at maintenance calories can help support metabolism, and it can help reduce stress on the body. So again, this means incorporating more building phases and using diet breaks and refeeds strategically. So not only are we looking at during the fat loss phase, hey, we probably want to incorporate some diet breaks and refeed days where we have some days where you're maybe closer to maintenance calories. Again, maybe we have a week where we do that. But we also, when we look at the entire year, ideally we're spending less time dieting overall there as well too, right? So we need to incorporate more phases where we're eating at maintenance and really putting your body in a position to feel safe and where it can really just optimize metabolism and everything that we do. This is why if somebody is trying to say conceive, or yeah, we wouldn't, ideally they wouldn't be in a fat loss phase. Now, preparing for that, you may be someone that's at really high body fat levels, and you may need to lose some body weight to get to healthier body fat levels. And just again, and not so much body fat levels, we're just looking at overall health, right? Body fat, weight goes into that, but your habits and your overall lifestyle, we want to make sure that's in a good spot, right? So it does go beyond just body weight. But again, either way, once you get to that point, then it's okay. You probably don't want to spend a lot of time fat loss dieting. That's not going to put you in the best position to do that. So again, if you're already on the leaner side, probably not conducive for you. But again, generally speaking, we just want to spend more time at maintenance calories. Again, for some people, maybe a small surplus, but we want to, in the short term and long term, spend less time dieting. So again, if we're looking at on the week, a couple week time span, we're using diet breaks and refeeds strategically there. And then again, in the long term, we're looking at utilizing more building phases and more just time spent at maintenance overall. Again, that's going to be less stress on the body, and it's going to put your body in the best position to feel good, to optimize all aspects of your health. 3, we need to double down on lifestyle habits. So when we're in a deficit, we need to double down on these things because dieting adds more stress to the body. So again, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to limit and reduce how much stress we put on the body. Unfortunately, a calorie deficit is a stressor on the body. And so because of that, dieting adds stress. Lifestyle factors are going to matter even more. So this means we need to prioritize quality sleep during a deficit. This means we need to balance our nervous system. We need to balance parasympathetic versus sympathetic inputs. We need to make sure that we're not just go. If you're fat loss dieting, you're doing HIIT, you're not sleeping well, you're super busy with your job, then you got to come home and take care of 4 kids. It's like you're just constantly go. And then on top of it, the free time you do have, you're sitting on your phone, looking at social media, getting upset about that. Again, it's all sympathetic type activity. We need some parasympathetic stuff into our day. Again, we need to balance that nervous system. So again, incorporating stress management techniques, also taking stress off the body in terms of maybe you don't need to do HIIT 7 days a week. Maybe all your training sessions don't need to be you burning in the most calories possible. Again, we need to balance it out. So the sympathetic and parasympathetic there's multiple ways to go about it. It's doing things that help bring you into a more relaxed state, but a lot of times it's also taking things out that you're doing too there. We want to optimize our circadian health. So that goes into prioritizing quality sleep, but optimizing our circadian health is also, again, if that's off, if we have a misalignment with our circadian rhythm, that's going to be another stressor on the body that we need to fix here. And so what I mean by that is we're getting some sunlight throughout the day, or we're at least getting some sort of natural light early in the day. And again, like I said, getting outside at some point. We're not having caffeine at 5 p.m. or honestly 2 to 5 p.m. or later. We're not having large meals right before bed. We're not just sitting on our phone right before bed. We're limiting blue light exposure right before bed. So that's kind of what I mean by optimizing our circadian health. And that's also sleep regularity. So making sure that you're not necessarily on the weekend staying up till 2 in the morning. And then during the week, you're asleep by 10 and you're up at 5 or 6. And then on the weekends, you go to bed at 2. And then now you're up at 9 or 10. Again, that's going to impact your sleep quality and your circadian health and just improving our environment. So this can be the people you surround yourself with, your work environment, the people you hang out with. Again, just making it more conducive to a healthy lifestyle. This could also be like your environment also being the like cosmetic hair stuff that you use as well too, right? Like those are things that can impact, that can be a stressor on the body if you're using stuff that uses a lot of things that can cause some issues there. So again, improving our environment, relationships, that's environment. So again, we want to double down on these lifestyle habits. This is the one that people often overlook when they're trying to fat loss diet. It's, hey, I want a fat loss diet. I need to lose weight as quickly as possible, and I need to just train super hard all the time. And they neglect this aspect of it. And this is huge. Again, we're going to need to double down on this. And again, the more aggressive you diet, the more you're going to need to double down on these things. Number 4, we need to expect more weight fluctuations. Women's weight tends to fluctuate more due to, 1, the greater stress response to dieting and hormonal shifts and menstrual cycle changes. This is why relying only on the scale is misleading. We need to track measurements, photos, and biofeedback. So again, you're going to see more fluctuations from day to day, week to week. It's unfortunately not going to be linear for you. It's going to be up and down a little bit, but where are those trends going? Again, if with my clients, make sure we track these things, and I let them know that they're going to have these fluctuations, because in the past they would see these, and then you're in a fat loss diet, you're not seeing the scale weight go down. So now people ramp up their training. They try to either do more cardio, they try to do more HIIT, and then they also eat less on top of it, right? So again, they're just adding more and more stress on a body that's already stressed and already has a higher stress response to calorie deficit. So you can see where this can be an issue of, you drive yourself into the ground here. And again, you're just putting your body in a bad position to lose body fat. It's not going to be in a good position to lose body fat. And then you're going to feel like crap in the process. And you're probably going to have these really intense cravings throughout. And then on top of it, you have the menstrual cycle. And again, you may find that you have more cravings during this period of time. Or is it that you just do these things and that's driving it up even more? 5, diet quality is also extra important, right? So a lack of vitamins and minerals is going to put extra stress on the body. So this can affect metabolism and recovery. This can also lead to larger hunger and cravings. So we want to have a balanced diet, but we also want to pair that with strategic supplementation that can help regulate stress. What I mean by that is we want to make sure we're getting in the micronutrients that we need. So one, stress can deplete your micronutrients, particularly like magnesium. Intense exercise can deplete it. You're also getting in as much because you're fat loss dieting. And usually when people fat loss diet and they're more aggressive with it, they aren't bringing in a lot of food, and they're not bringing in high quality food either in that process. And so we just have all these things that line up with having a ton of micronutrient deficiencies, which is going to lead to you not like, your body's not going to run optimally. You're going to feel like crap, and you're going to be hungry, and you're going to have high cravings as well too. So we want to have a balanced diet and strategic supplementation. When it comes to clients, the ones that I recommend during a fat loss phase, this is the foundation. After this foundation, it does become a little bit more individual in terms of what you need, but we're looking at a good multivitamin. We're looking at magnesium. We're looking at fish oil. We're looking at creatine, and we are looking at vitamin D. Those would be the main ones. And then from there, again, it's going to be strategic in terms of what we need based on if you have blood work, or if, again, we're noticing something in terms of any symptoms or anything like that. So again, 5 is we need to focus on diet quality and not just eating less, not just hitting our macros or hitting our calories. 6, we want to monitor our training intensity. So more isn't always better. Sorry, let me go back real quick before I hit this one. On the diet quality thing too, a big thing that I'll commonly see with clients is this kind of if it fits your macros approach. Again, it's good to have some flexibility built in, but that can backfire. And again, that leads to a lot of micronutrient deficiencies if we're not careful, right? People are trying to fit in super tasty foods all the time because it fits their macros. So you see, this is what I think of. I just think of a lot of whey protein powder, protein bars, like nut butters with cereal that is macro friendly. Like I'm thinking like protein cookies, protein chips, like things like that. That's what makes up a lot of people's diet. And then they wonder why they're not feeling great and they struggle, right? Again, you're low calorie, you have high stress on the body, and you're just not fueling your body with the nutrients it needs either. So 6, and the last one here, is we want to monitor our training intensity. So more isn't always better. Chasing calorie burn and maxing out every session is going to increase stress. So again, this comes back to the stress response. We're already at a higher risk of that with being in a deficit. And then on top of it, if you really just push training and you don't have any goal of your training other than you just need to feel like you beat yourself up and you burn the most calories, you're going to struggle. You're just going to be really putting in a lot of work and not seeing the results that you want to see, and just adding stress and almost making things worse. We want to train hard, but we need to avoid constantly pushing intensity for fat loss. What I mean by that is pushing intensity for the sake of intensity and thinking that's going to increase your fat loss. With training, again, in a perfect world, how I would set it up for a client in this situation is we're going to do a minimum of 3 days of resistance training. In those resistance training sessions, we're trying to progressively overload over time, not necessarily every single session. We're going to push ourselves somewhat close to failure, so that way it's challenging, okay? And we're going to do about 6 to 10 sets per week, maybe more depending on the person. And we're probably going to train each muscle group twice a week. That's what we're going to do from a weight training standpoint. Next, we'll probably do some lower intensity cardio, maybe 1 to 2 days of that, 45, 60-ish minutes. Again, the goal isn't to burn the most calories. It's to stay within a zone. It's somewhat challenging, not super challenging. And that's going to help with your cardiovascular fitness, which is going to have other benefits from a body comp perspective and overall health perspective and a recovery perspective. And we get that nice added bonus of burning some extra calories there. And then maybe we do 1 to 2 sessions per week of a little bit higher intensity type cardio where we really get that heart rate up. But it's short, it's not long, and there's a process to it. We're not just doing it just to burn the most calories. And then the rest of the time, we're just getting movement in outside of the gym to where we're making sure we're staying active outside the gym. And that's what your training should look like. If you like to do group classes, that's fine. But again, ideally, in the perfect scenario, that's what I'm having. But the big thing being, we need to monitor our intensity. We don't just want to push intensity. When I say intensity, getting your heart rate up, increasing your calorie burn just for the sake of doing that. Because again, that's another stressor on the body, and that can hurt you in the long run. So what about men? We talked about women being less aggressive and all those things that we talked about. So what about men? So men will typically handle deficits better due to hormonal differences, right? So higher testosterone and no cycle related shifts. And we can have lower levels of body fat, right? And we don't have to conceive. We don't have to have babies. We don't have to feed another human for 9 months, a human growing inside of you. And then you also don't have to feed that human and produce that food for them afterwards. Our bodies are a little bit more adaptable to energy deficits. There's just going to be less stress on the body. Now, all these things I just talked about still apply for men. It's just to a little bit of a lower degree, right? So I would still make sure that we're still focusing on lifestyle habits, just not going balls to the wall and training all the time, all the things I mentioned, right? But men can tolerate slightly larger deficits. What this means is if a male came to me and they were super overweight and they need to lose weight, we could be very aggressive with them. Even at moderate body fats, we can be a bit more aggressive so long as we're doing all the things I talked about, hitting enough protein, weight training, you'll probably be in a good spot. Again, we don't want to necessarily do that all the time either, because again, that is eventually going to be a stressor on the body. And it is a stressor on the body. It's just a little bit lower of that. So they can tolerate slightly larger deficits. But at the end of the day, the leaner you get, we're probably going to have to be less aggressive there, right? And we're going to have fewer weight fluctuations. You're going to see this kind of trend down, right? This is the common, men just look at food or look at food less and they lose weight. Again, it probably comes down to this, where it's a lower stress response on the body and we have these fewer weight fluctuations because of that. And so you're just going to see this trend down. And men generally are larger and there's more weight to lose in that process, right? But either way, chronic stress, poor recovery, and excessive dieting will still backfire for both men and women. Women just need a more strategic approach to avoid unnecessary stress in this process, right? So that's really where things differ between men and women when it comes to fat loss. Otherwise, you still need a calorie deficit. You still need to eat enough protein. And we still need to monitor your biofeedback to make sure you're feeling good in the process. But again, men can be a bit more aggressive if they want to when it comes to fat loss dieting. And this doesn't mean that women, you can't be aggressive. It just means we have to look out for these things that I talked about. So key takeaway, all the fat loss requirements are the same, but because women have a greater stress response to dieting, the goal isn't to just eat less, it's to reduce overall stress while maintaining fat loss and body composition changes. So let me know if you have any questions on this topic. Again, if you don't follow me on Instagram, you can make sure you do. Jeff, HOEHN_. That's where I'm most active. And you can ask me any questions on this topic. If you found this podcast to be helpful in any way, if you could leave a rating and review. Next, as I reminded you early, I have my free body recomp checklist. Again, if you enjoyed this, it's going to go into this stuff in a little bit more detail, and you'll have it written out for you so you can see it, what you need to do there. And then lastly, if you struggle with this and you thought this was interesting and you want to potentially work together, my free 30-minute strategy call is for you. The link to that is in the show notes, and you can fill it out there and we can chat and see if it's a good fit or if there's other resources that would be most helpful for you during this period of time. So that's it for me. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll talk to you soon.